The town of Hollow Creek was a place time forgot, quaint, quiet, peaceful, a forgotten postcard from a simpler era, but beneath the idyllic facade a darkness festered. A secret whispered on the wind, rustling through the cornfields that bordered the town. The locals knew the stories. They always had. Tales passed down through generations, tales of the Scarecrow. Hollow Creek was more than just farmland. It held a history, a darkness that clung to the town like morning mist. The stories spoke of a malevolent entity, a being trapped in the form of a scarecrow. It was a tale whispered around campfires, a chilling reminder of the evil that lurked in the shadows. Most dismissed it as folklore, a ghost story, to keep children in line. They would learn. They all did. The legend of the Scarecrow was as old as the town itself. Some whispered that it was the spirit of a vengeful farmer, bound to the land for some unknown transgression. Others claimed it was a demon, drawn to the town's isolation. Whatever its origins, the Scarecrow was a source of constant dread. It was a specter that haunted the town's collective memory. The stories always started the same way. A lone traveler passing through Hollow Creek, a farmer working late in the fields, a teenager emboldened by a dare, venturing too close to the north field after dark. They would describe a sense of unease, a prickling at the back of their necks, the feeling of being watched, and then they would see it, a figure standing in the moonlight, a scarecrow, its eyes glowing with an eerie light. Fear would grip their hearts. The creature that was once a humble scarecrow felt the familiar pull, the veil between seasons thinning. Autumn, with its long nights and chilling winds, was approaching. It was a time of harvest and a time for the hunt. A low growl, a sound only the scarecrow could hear, rumbled within its crude chest. The stitched burlap lips curled into a grotesque smile. It was time to feed. The scarecrow stood in the field, a silent sentinel bathed in moonlight. Its empty sockets, once filled with nothing but darkness, flickered. A malevolent red glow pulsed within, like embers in a dying fire. It stretched, its straw limbs creaking, feeling the power surge through its form. No longer just a scarecrow. It was something more, something sinister. The transformation was slow, agonizing. The first victim was a young man named Billy Granger, a farmhand new to Hollow Creek, unaware of the danger that lurked in the fields. He was walking home from a neighboring town after a night of revelry. A short cut through the north field seemed like a good idea at the time. Now, as the shadows grew longer and the moon cast an eerie glow on the corn stalks, he regretted his decision. The wind carried a chill that went beyond the crisp autumn air. It seemed to whisper his name, a low guttural sound that sent shivers down his spine. Billy quickened his pace, his breath fogging in the cool night air. He could have sworn he saw something move in the periphery, a flicker of darkness against the moonlit field. He dared not stop to look. Then he heard it, the sound that would forever haunt his nightmares, a slow, deliberate crunch, like footsteps on dry leaves, but heavier, more deliberate. It was coming from behind him, Billy forced himself to look over his shoulder. His blood ran cold. Word spread like wildfire through Hollow Creek. Whispers at first, then hushed conversations behind cupped hands. Billy Granger had vanished, last seen heading towards the north field. The old folks shook their heads knowingly. The younger ones, their faces pale with a fear they couldn't quite comprehend, listened with morbid fascination. The Scarecrow was awake. The sheriff, a world-weary man named John Thompson, tried to maintain order. He organized search parties, combed the fields for any sign of Billy, but he knew in his heart it was no use. He had seen the fear in the eyes of too many townsfolk, heard the whispered tales too many times. The Scarecrow didn't leave survivors. Nightfall descended on Hollow Creek. A palpable wave of fear washed over the town. Doors were bolted. Lights kept burning long into the night. Days turned into weeks. The search for Billy Granger was abandoned. The town of Hollow Creek lived under a suffocating blanket of fear. Gone were the carefree days of children playing in the streets, the laughter and chatter replaced by an unnerving silence. The Scarecrow had cast a long, dark shadow over their lives. Farmers, their livelihoods dependent on the land, went to their fields armed with more than just farming tools. Shotguns and rifles were their new companions, their eyes constantly scanning the horizon, their fingers never far from the trigger. But fear was a fickle companion. It dulled their senses, made them see danger in every rustle of leaves, every shadow cast by the moon. The nights were the worst. Sleep became a luxury few could afford. Every creak of the house, every howl of the wind, sent their hearts racing. The Scarecrow haunted their dreams, its glowing eyes boring into their souls. Despite the suffocating fear that had gripped Hollow Creek, a spark of defiance began to flicker. It started with hushed conversations, whispers of defiance against the creature that held them hostage. They couldn't simply surrender to this terror. They had to fight back. Old Sarah Jenkins, her wrinkled face a testament to years of hardship and resilience, became an unlikely leader. She had seen the fear in the eyes of her grandchildren, the same fear that had haunted her own childhood. She refused to let it consume another generation. Sarah spoke of ancient remedies, of herbs and rituals that could ward off evil. Her words, imbued with a quiet strength, resonated with the townsfolk. A plan began to form, daring, desperate, and dangerous. The night of the full moon arrived, casting an eerie glow over Hollow Creek. The wind whipped through the streets, carrying with it a palpable sense of dread. The townsfolk gathered at the edge of the north field, their faces grim. They were armed with pitchforks, axes, and shotguns. Sarah Jenkins, her eyes burning with a fierce light, stood at the front. As the moon reached its zenith, the Scarecrow appeared. It stood at the edge of the corn, its eyes glowing like embers. The night exploded in a cacophony of sound and fury. Gunshots ripped through the air, illuminating the field. The Scarecrow swiped its claws, sending townsfolk scattering. The battle was short and brutal. Fueled by dark magic, the Scarecrow was unstoppable. It stood victorious, illuminated by flames. They had risked everything, yet the Scarecrow remained.